As many of you are probably aware, Corvus Belli have just released a new FAQ update to N4, and some aspects of it seem to have caused quite a bit of a stir. So I'm going to go through most of the updates that Corvus Belli have released and talk a little bit about some of the implications of some of those FAQs, as well as give a little bit of an insight as to which ones I'm a big fan of, the ones I'm less of a fan of, and also a couple of changes that have come into this one that I think give a great signal as to where Corvus Belli is going. So stick around and let's go through each of those updates individually. So the first one is a slightly unusual one. It's about repositioning troopers. So how this reads is that the question is, during the main part of your deployment phase, can you reposition troopers, deployables, etc.? It says yes, but it's basically as soon as you make a roll or do anything like check coherency, distances and things like that, you can't. This is, I think, clarification mostly, because my understanding from most of the games I've played is that this is generally how people have been playing it, regardless of what the FAQ or the rules actually say. So for example, if you are deploying a trooper and you want to check that it's in coherency, you basically can't measure and then change to reposition yourself. So fundamentally, during deployment, you can wriggle things around, you can move them around, but as soon as you measure or roll for anything, you pretty much can't move it from then on. I don't think, for me, this isn't a huge change in terms of the FAQ changing how the game has been playing. For me, I think it's solidifying how most people have played it. Let me know if you've got a different take on that, but yeah, that's definitely my take on this first one and the example that is given. The next change that we end up seeing there is in the deployment phase, again, do you have to check zone of control when a trooper uses mine layer or coherency when deploying decoys or hollow echoes? Yes, but your opponent must look away. I quite like this one. I don't know how other people played it beforehand. We generally locally, I think, have a bit of a time during deployment where someone leaves the room or they look away to enable hidden deployment without that awkward, like, do you mind if you leave or turn away? Because that's also a bit of mind games. If someone turns to you and says, can you look away because I might have something to deploy? Do they? Or are they trying to get in your head? So as a player myself, I just go to get to a phase in the deployment where I'm just like, hey, look, I'm just going to go take a wander, or I'm going to turn away, I'm going to go do something. Let me know when you're all right for me to come back. And I think that for me personally, that gets away from the gaminess. I don't know if they've deployed anything. I've given them opportunity to do so. However, the good thing here is like checking mine layer, checking mines with camo tokens. Yeah, it's a good opportunity for players to basically get that chance to go, well, which one's the mine? Which one's, is that a mine? Is that a camo token? Are they within 8? Yeah, I quite like this FAQ update. I think it's pretty good. I think it plays well with how most people were probably playing already. So again, I don't know that this opens up any new gaminess, but again, might just be me. When do unconscious, dead or sepsis-rise troopers leave a combat group? So again, this one I thought was pretty clear beforehand, mostly because of how the interactions come later in the game, where it basically says an unconscious trooper is still part of the combat group. I think we all knew that. I don't think that's fresh information for anyone else. Dead or sepsis-rise troopers are not part of any combat group. So maybe the new bit here, and I haven't opened up the original rule in this instance, because again, I've glanced over it and I was like, I'm pretty sure that all makes common sense, to really see how this may have changed anything. But the unconscious trooper bit, that's well known, because if you're trying to move units from one combat group to another using your command token, you can't do that if the trooper's unconscious because it doesn't free up the spot in the combat group. You need them to die. I think for me, the bit that I've learned is sepsis-rise doesn't count as being out of the combat group, but that's mostly because I haven't come across sepsis-rise very often, so again, I don't think that's new information. It's just new to me, and it's probably clearer. Again, let me know, but again, I thought that was fairly straightforward and didn't really give anything crazy away. What happens if a trooper loses and gains points of wounds and structure, or has states inflicted and cancelled simultaneously? For example, if an engineer cancels a trooper's immobilised A state at the same time as the trooper is hit by a riot stopper. Again, I think I know how this plays out, and then reading the FAQ, it's like apply the positive effect first, so that's clearing the state, then apply the negative state. Again, I felt like this was how everyone was playing it already, so maybe it's just clarifying to make the rule easier for someone who's reading it for the first time or something like that. The because this generally means that you would still be implying the pH minus 6 saving roll because of the para ammunition. Oh, here we go. So, yeah, so for example, make the engineer's whip roll to cancel the immobilized A state, then make the pH minus 6 saving roll against the riot stopper's para ammunition, because that's happening. And this can result in the original immobilized state being cancelled and a new state being inflicted. Yeah, again, like, apologies if you're reading this and all of this is new and I don't sound amazed in some of these areas, but I'm pretty sure everything so far is just how the game was being played already. So definitely page 1 for me wasn't full of any major shocks, which is good, because then you get to page 2 and that's where things do get a little bit interesting. So this is how a jump and climb move's measured, and it helps here that they've got the kind of like the graphic there. And I think people would have played this differently based on how they maybe perceived like measuring one distance to another, but technically I think you could have been doing this already if you were kind of clever, because you measure distances from the nearest point of the silhouette, at least when you're checking ranges and things like that. So why not use like the very top of a silhouette to measure like a vault distance, or, you know, like a climb or a super jump? And that's where this actually really kicks in, is when you're talking about super jump and climbing plus. And I think the reason why this has had such a major reaction for so many people is because climbing plus is now available on quite a few tags, as is things like super jump. So when you're looking at a model that is S7, and then you're basically saying, okay, measure that jump distance from the top of that model, or the climb distance from the top of that model to then the bottom of where it wants to be. Ignore the parapets, like it kind of does, and again, in my local group, we always ignore parapets for moving distance anyway. You're basically then just going, oh, okay, so in order for me to move, I'm basically just going like, ooh, like that. Like, it seems like a shorter distance. So a lot of people are there going, I've seen numbers that like, oh, tags have just gained 2 inches a move, you know, Zeta's just gained 2.5 inches a move. I don't think, again, I think someone would have been well within their rights to have done this beforehand and not really like been gaming the situation. And I think just the clarity has made people go, whoa, this is now like huge and broken. I think it's fine. Yeah, tags and anything with super jump and climbing plus, like super jump, people complained originally when M4 dropped that got a huge nerf and was now unplayable, according to some people. Whereas actually it wasn't. It was fine and actually really good. It just wasn't horrible, because again, so how super jump used to work, if you're unfamiliar, you only had to measure to like your top, and then you could kind of like have a free fall, and that's how things worked. So if you had a 4-inch like jump movement, you could jump 4 inches in the air, shoot everything at the top, and then just free fall. And then with super jump, they said, no, the entire move has to be within your 4 inches. So you basically get to jump 2 inches and then down 2 inches. So everyone's like, oh, there's no point even taking super jump anymore, because what's even the point in living? And then we get to this, which is actually probably it actually succeeds in slightly giving super jump back something that it didn't have before. So all those people that were complaining beforehand that super jump is now unusable should be happy with this, because they've gained something back without it being as broken as it was beforehand. And then with climbing plus is kind of cool anyway, and so basically you've gotten like a little bit of extra, like the height of your silhouette extra distance. That's not major, and especially in the example with tags, where you've also got to be able to move onto something that can fit your base, and some of these bases are quite significant. So actually getting that extra 2 inches move just means that you're more likely to actually be able to get your base if you're super jumping forward. And climbing plus was less of an issue with something like a tick blang, but I don't think this is a major issue. I can see how people have reacted quite strongly to it, but I think this is like now the middle point between like N3 super jump, N4 super jump. I think we're now in like, this is the medium between the two, at least for super jump. And then for climbing plus, it should be cool anyway. Like, it's a cool skill. I don't mind that it's gotten a couple of extra moves. But again, jump in the comments if you hate it. What do you hate about it specifically? Do you think this actually does a good job of getting us back to close to what N3 super jump was and actually making super jump units great again? Yeah, keen to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you hate it, just rant in the comments, because I love seeing people's reactions to rules changes and what that means. First up, I'm also going to apologise for the setting and my general attire. I'm actually away on a work trip at the moment, but as soon as I saw that the FAQ dropped this morning, I packed my camera gear so that as I got to my Airbnb at night, I could hopefully do a video for you around all of this stuff, which is why everything's a little bit unusual and odd. But yeah, apologies for that. I wanted to do this as quickly as possible. The next update that we see is, how does inspiring leadership interact with Lieutenants. Inspiring leadership only works if the trooper is the current lieutenant on the table. Again, kind of thought that was obvious, but I've probably missed something major for this. I've only really seen Joan of Arc because when I was playing Pano and military orders. Again, read inspiring leadership was like, I'm pretty sure this is fairly straightforward. So I've probably missed something as to why this FAQ was required. Again, please let me know what I missed. To be honest, it's probably something on Infinity's crit posting page where someone's probably done like half a dozen memes, spams like some jokey situation, and then Corpus Belli go, do people really think that that's how you can play the rule? And then do an FAQ just to make doubly sure that people aren't going to try and take crit posting's advice on how to play the game. If that is the case, then congrats to whoever did the crit post, because it's got you an entry on the FAQ, so well done. Then we've got another one. What happens when a trooper uses the explode special skill and the template affects an allied trooper? The template is cancelled, but the user of explode still enters the dead state. This was useful for me because my Gakis in Morats, they have explode. But I think, again, this aligns with how templates work typically, because I think if a template's going to affect a friendly, it gets cancelled, at least like the teardrop templates potentially. Maybe I'm now like connecting two completely different things to try and make sense of this FAQ. But that, you know, that makes sense. I like that one. It kind of works. You don't want to be exploding. And it's also a great way to try and like get away from exploding units and, you know, just try and get one of their units in there in the mix as well. So particularly for me, I think as a Morats player, I'm going to try and be careful to not get two Gakis into contact with an enemy trooper. Even though that would give me an extra CC attack, it might cancel the explode, which is better in my eyes. So that was good to know. It's going to change how I do tactics. How do hidden deployment and hollow echo states interact? I liked this one when I read it first because I think one of the players in my group has been having some like quite good fun with like hollow echo, hidden deployment-y things and general shenanigans. But I quite like this one as well. I do think this one is fine. I think that's a nice clarity to have, but I don't think it breaks anything as far as we're aware of. Again, if I'm saying anything and you're like, no, because of XY situation, it's probably just because I haven't come across XY situation before. So good for you to like jump in and say, this is actually huge because of this unit. So please do in the comments, because it will make for good reading for anyone who watches this and then wants to see specific examples as to why one of these rules might be broken. Do hollow echoes block line of fire? Yes. Again, felt like that was always the way, because a hollow echo is still, it's like supposed to be a real representation of that model. So surely it would act in most cases like the real model. Again, I've probably missed something as to why that needed clarification, but it's there. How are Timbots taken into account for deployment or interacting with them? Again, I thought this was clear, but I can also see how people might get confused, especially new into the game, because Corpus Belli, frustratingly to a degree, includes Timbot models in some of their units. So the Suriats for Morats, they got a Timbot model. Hector gets a Timbot model for Aleph and for O12. And it's a little bit annoying because they aren't troopers, they don't generate orders, they're not there. So why create a model for something that isn't there? You know, you don't have picture models like for units that have that. Like, you just don't do that. And then you've got things like Mad Traps, which are models and they do have an effect. And sometimes they look very similar to things like Timbot. So to be honest, I just think Corpus Belli doesn't need to make Timbots, and that would fix some of the confusion. But I'm glad again that they've put this clarification in here, because I've definitely had one or two people turn around when I have been using a Timbot model to show people that a model has Timbot and go, oh, what's that? Do I kill that too? It's like, oh, it was never on the table, it's not a unit, it's just there for fun. So good FAQ, bad model. Does a trooper in a disconnected state or unconscious state, including those in Shazvasti and Rio state, prevent an enemy from re-entering? No. So that's just adding extra bits to just make it doubly clear, because you can't re-enter if you've got like a enemy trooper, cautious move or entering marker state. So no, that's just adding further clarity should it have been needed. What happens if a peripheral or their controller enters isolated state? Again, this one I thought was pretty clear. Basically, they enter disconnected. Kind of thought that was always the case. and I've always played it that way anyway. If the peripherals in an isolated state is cancelled, they can also cancel the disconnected state. So long as they're within zone of control, they can reconnect. It doesn't say that there, but that is definitely in the original rules. So yeah, again, thought that was pretty clear, but clearly not clear enough, clearly. Do peripherals in disconnected state still activate with their controller? No, they're disconnected. Again, thought that was really clear. A disconnected peripheral can't do anything. But again, clearly wasn't clear. What happens to a special lieutenant order if the lieutenant enters an isolated state? If the order has not been spent, it is lost and cannot be used, whether by lieutenant or by a trooper with NCO skill. That was new for me, but I don't think it was new. But I just have always thought, again, having played like some troopers where isolated is a big deal, bigger deal than it is now that I'm playing Morats, is that I thought that lieutenant order could then be used on the lieutenant because it's generated, if it was generated at the beginning, and then I'm not sure whether I remembered that couldn't then be used on an NCO. So I was confused about this, is basically where I'm getting to with this. And so I'm glad that there's the clarification here, because if I was confused, chances are at least one other person may have been. So that was good. Can an NCO in an isolated state use the special lieutenant order? No. Again, it's just good to know. I haven't had it come up in an actual game, but that is good to clarify. How does tactical awareness interact with isolated state? Isolated state does not affect tactical awareness. The trooper generates their extra irregular order and can use it. Would have thought that would have been the case anyway, but good to know. Does double shot work in ARO? No. I'm trying to think, would it ever have? I mean, maybe it's ambiguous because it's kind of like gain an extra burst. Some people still ask the question of like, oh, this weapon is +1 burst, does that work in ARO? Forgetting that the ARO rule in general actually like trumps those specific rules. So I think this is probably just like as necessary as answering the question, do I get +1 burst in ARO because my weapon gives me +1 burst? So yeah, again, not ground shaking, but probably a good clarification anyway. When are a fire team's composition bonuses checked? This is a nice one, actually. I do quite like this one. A fire team's composition bonus is a private information until the resolution step of an order in which their player declares BS attack or discover when the mods for the roles are determined. The reason why I like this one is because it means that you can do shenanigans with hollow echo. Am I thinking hollow echo? Yeah, I'm thinking hollow, the other one, where they pretend to be something that they're not, whereas hollow echo is the multiple versions of it, like the Night of the Holy Sepulchre. Hollow something. You could pretend to hollow in what is actually like a 4-man link. Like if I'm the active player, so I know what my list is doing. I know I've got a 4-core pure link in front of me, but I've got something hollow masking. So I got there. Hollow masking as something that is eligible to go in that to make it a 5 pure. Now, I like that this is private information because, you know, my opponent now thinks I've got a 5-man pure and all the bonuses and the buffs that come with that. And it's not until we get to the resolution phase where you go, actually, I'm rolling with 2 less ballistic skill than I should do. And that would give the game away to some people. It would be like, well, that's not a 5-man pure then, that's a 4-man pure. But I like this because it means that there's more options for shenanigans. So this is pretty cool. Again, if people were playing this already, good on you, like well done. And great that the FAQ has now at least alerted people to the fact that this is an option available. And definitely do it. It's a cool strategy. If I could do it, I would do it. But I can't do it, so I don't do it. But it's nice. If a trooper with frenzy is in a fire team and causes damage to an enemy, do they become impetuous in the states phase? No, the trooper has to cause damage while they're not a member of a fire team. Again, I thought the fire team rules, but I can see again because the fire team rules are separate and the main rules are separate, and probably this could fall into the gap quite nicely or quite easily for a lot of people. But I like that this is clarified. Again, I figured that this was actually fairly straightforward in the first place, but maybe that's just me. This is one I particularly like and one that I think I've asked. Historically, can a controller be part of a fire team or coordinated order if its peripheral is isolated, disconnected, dead, etc.? I may have actually asked this of CB. I asked him a whole raft of questions, and this is the only one I recognise. And the reason why I was asking this was because I was like, well, technically, I know that with the fire team rules, a unit that has a peripheral is not allowed to join a fire team. That's incredibly clear. But is that based on its profile when it was in the list and dropped on the table, or based on its current state? So if you've got something, and I'm really going to struggle to think of an example off the top of my head, but something that has order sergeants. Yeah, an order sergeant would be a good idea for military orders. So you've got order sergeants that can have an AUX bot, and if you deploy that on the table, that's not eligible for a fire team because the AUX bot's there. But if the AUX bot dies or gets disconnected, well, that's now just an order sergeant. So if you go to reform a link and that order sergeant has the space, is eligible for that link, and is in proximity to do it, what would stop that from then joining the fire team? Corpus Belli has been very clear here. No, you can't do that. So that's very clear. But yeah, the question just existed as to well, it's meeting all the requirements, so technically it can it? No, it's the short answer. In fact, I think it's it is one of the few that gets a one-word answer. And I always feel whenever CB does a one-word answer and no further explanation, it's kind of no. What were you thinking? No. Whereas at least when it gets a full answer, it's no, because of this reason. But good on you for asking. As opposed to my one, which gets a, really? You thought that? You thought that was possible? No. Can a fire team's burst support bonus be combined with other burst mods and bonuses? This is an exciting one as well, because this has developed into a bit of a conversation, and there was genuine confusion and ambiguity around this. So this was a good FAQ to drop, and it didn't fall the way I thought it was going to fall either. So yes, for example, a remote can add the burst support bonus to its burst 2 ARO from enhanced reaction, giving it a burst 3 in ARO. I thought it was going to be a no, because I thought it was going to be one of those ones where you're already getting the buff here, you can't stack that buff with another buff from something else. But Corpus Belli have gone, nah, you can. And I don't know if this is because they're very pro-remote at the moment, with a couple of the adjustments that they've made for Thunderclap, but I like it. Burst 3 in ARO for a couple of remotes, that's awesome. That will hopefully have people taking more of those burst support bonuses in fire teams with enhanced reaction. Give it burst 3, that's cool. I'm not looking forward to facing that for the first time, but well done for making that a thing. There's then a few pages before we get to the next thing. We get to page 10 of the FAQ, which reflects to page 23 of the rulebook, which is loss of lieutenant. Activation: if during the tactical phase of the active turn, the active player lacks a lieutenant because they did not deploy it in the game table, or as a model or a marker, or the previous lieutenant is currently in a null state or is isolated, then a situation of loss of lieutenant is automatically declared. What I reckon is if I had the rulebook open here at the same time, I'd see which bits of text got added, and it's probably just clarifying the states where someone is in loss of lieutenant fully. My bad for not being more prepared for this, but again, I'm traveling, so I don't have all my screens available to me. Apologies for that. Line of fire, the third condition, is changed to: line of fire can be drawn from any point of the trooper's silhouette to any point of the target's silhouette without being obstructed by any piece of scenery or the silhouette of any model, allied or enemy. Don't know if the allied bit's new, because I don't know if some people have been playing it that you can basically shoot through your enemies. Nah, nothing immediately jumps out to me with that one. Again, would help if I actually had the rulebook open at the same time, my bad. The first exception is changed to: as long as the trooper can draw line of fire to their target can draw line of fire to that trooper as well, as long as that trooper is within the target's line of fire arc. A small bell is ringing, but maybe that last bit, as long as the trooper is within the target's line of fire arc, could be new. Whereas I think everyone knew how to play it, but maybe that's just clarification. I'm guessing here, guys, I'm guessing, because I don't have the rulebook open in front of me. Same with page 43, burst. In Infinity M4, when a trooper performs an attack during the active turn, they must use their full burst value, including all modifiers. Mods from skills and equipment with the optional labels, such as fire team burst bonus, do not have to be applied during the active turn. See, this maybe just refreshed a rule for me. it feels new, but then that's also because I've got a terrible memory for specific rule wordings. So I thought you had to use the maximum burst value for things. So, for example, when you're using Flammenspeers from a trooper that's in a fire team, and because you get +1 burst, I mean, I think you'd want to in most cases, but I thought you had to fire twice, which would then obviously use up your disposable traits quicker. This may just be me not playing it right or reading it correctly in the first instance, but seeing this FAQ has at least told me how to do it, in which case I've got the choice to now only use one Flammenspeer or one Panzerfaust or something like that, or only use one smoke grenade or one mine, whatever you happen to be, because it's optional. So yeah, I mean, again, jump in the comments. Was it new? Is it changing lots? Don't know. Area of effect of template weapons, new effect after bullet 5, so I don't need to have the rules open because this is a new one. Once placed, the template remains on the game table until the resolution step of the order. Interesting. Don't know off the top of my head immediately what that would impact, maybe other things moving into that zone, but then that happens in the resolution step, like dodging. They're dodging into a template. Is that a problem? No, because the dodge would be fine. I can't think. I cannot think as to how that would massively change the game. Again, jump in the comments if you know. Direct template weapons, new effect in ARO. Any active trooper in the area of effect of the template during the order counts as a main target when checking whether the template is cancelled. Again, can't think off the top of my head if that breaks anything or fixes anything major. Any active trooper in the... Yeah, can't think off the top of my head. Nice, like new conditions being added is always good because it clarifies things in my mind, but I can't think off the top of my head what that would really change. I probably need the template rule open at the same time. Template weapons into close combat. Template weapons placed on a group of troopers who are engaged in close combat, as opposed to the current order, will always affect every trooper involved, even if due to the template's placement, it contacts only some of them. Ah, that's nice. I think that's good, because like combat, like Infinity is all about like lots of things happening at once. So even if at that moment, at that second, you can only see 2 people out of 4 that are in combat with each other, it kind of makes sense that with combat, everyone's like moving around and doing stuff. So this is quite interesting. I think that's nice. I personally like that. Let me know if you hate it. It could be cool. I think that could be cool. I do. Impact template weapons, it's obligatory to declare a valid main target who must be in line of fire when the attack is declared and who will be the reference place to target. Again, I think that just makes sense. That just makes sense. This hacking area one on page 60 has caused a bit of confusion, but I think it was designed to clarify something. So this term refers to the area of effect of a hacking program. In Infinity M4, a hacker's hacking area matches their zone of control and the zone of control of repeaters and deployable repeaters of either the player or their allies. Will be, then we go over to the next page. In addition, if a hacker is within zone of control of an enemy repeater or deployable repeater, the hacking area includes all enemy troopers on the game table. However, if the enemy trooper is not a hacker, any ARO or hacking program using the enemy repeater will fail its requirements and instead an idle will be performed. So many people I've seen comment and just go, this is insane, I can now hack every enemy on the table through an enemy repeater. But then you read the second sentence, and it's like, however, if the enemy trooper is not a hacker, any ARO or hacking program using the enemy repeater will fail its requirements and instead an idle will be performed. So we could always, since I've been playing tail end of N3, all of N4 so far, you could always use an enemy's repeater to hack your enemy hackers through it, but you would suffer a -3 firewall mod. That's always been the case, as far as I can remember through N3 and maybe even Code 1. So this isn't new, but I think what it was trying to do is maybe give us a situation where if you thought the target was a hacker, something's hollow masking as a hacker, so you go to the enemy repeater, you declare a hack through it, that turns out to not be a hacker, then you just idle. I think in terms of this, because it hasn't actually changed the structure of how something works, I don't think this is intended to be breaking anything or creating anything new. I think it's trying to clarify how it should have been played, but I think everyone kind of got it to start with, and that actually maybe this wording has slightly confused everyone just with its structure. So basically, carry on as you were with that one. Addition to the hacking area and AROs. There's a huge red text here. This is a monster of an update. Enemies entering or acting inside the hacking area of a hacker while remaining outside that hacker's line of fire and zone of control can be reacted to with hacking programs or with reset. Yes, always been the case. In the ARO check steps of the order expenditure sequence, see page 21, players can check if the active trooper is inside any reactive trooper's hacking areas. Measurements must always be made from the active trooper, checking the maximum of the 8 inches from... I'm sure there was a break in that sentence somewhere. Yes. Measurements must always be made from the active trooper, checking a maximum of 8 inches from any point. Oh my word. If the measurements shown that the active trooper is within the hacking area of the reactive trooper, they can declare a hacking program... Stuff is being said, but I don't think that this is anything different, really. Hollow mask and hacking area. Am I just about to read the thing I've just said to you? When using an enemy repeater to include an enemy trooper in the hacking area, any ARO or hacking program against the trooper who does not have the hacker special skill on their real unit profile will fail its requirements in the resolution step of the area. So, like, egg on my face for having explained it to you, like your school children, and then there's clarity on there. But why change the wording when you're going to add that bit which kind of does the thing that your previous thing explains? You're double explaining something. Like, your previous adjustment to the rule has made it clear that then if something turns out to not be a hacker, you just idle. Why then add a whole new section that explains how hollow mask works? What am I missing? Calm down now. We'll just look at the other ones, shall we? Camouflage state and ARO through a repeater. This is affected the same way as trying to do a shooting attack against a camouflage trooper. You can delay, and if it turns out that you cannot hack as a result of that delay because it hasn't revealed itself, you cannot do anything. But if they reveal themselves, you can then hack. Eclipse ammunition, a new effect. If a trooper with the multispectral visor is the target of a BS attack into, through, or out of the zero visibility zone, then multispectral visor cannot reduce the mods of the resulting poor visibility zone. This is actually useful because I have had this conversation with people fairly recently, and we had ascertained, not with Eclipse, I think with smoke, so that may be different. However, it's also worth noting though that I think the fire team thing still applies, so Sixth Sense would still enable you to shoot back without restrictions. So yeah. The visor cannot reduce the mods of the resulting poor visibility zone. No, that's good. That's good effect. I like that. Important box about the burst value. If these modifiers affect burst B value, they are only applied during the active turn. The maximum burst value of any weapon is 6, no matter how many mods or Bs are applied. Well, that's cool. I couldn't think of any example where you'd get more than 6 or get up to 6. I think Usha's auto pistol and anyone's auto pistol, but Usha just springs to mind. That's burst 5. What has burst 6, people? Jump in the comments. How could you potentially get to burst 6? How can you do that? Please let me know. I don't think I've ever rolled more than 6 dice, apart from for saving crits. Modifiers, remember box, the first 4 bullet points are replaced by any model value in round brackets next to a special skill weapon such as CC +3, combat jump, PH -10. Only applies when using the special skill. Positive mods only applies to the user, negative mods only applies to the enemies. Negative mods for automatic skills and equipment such as mimetism or surprise shot. Always apply the mods as specified in the rules. Negative mods for other special skills, weapons and equipment, dodge, only apply during face-to-face rolls. For me, the during face-to-face rolls might be, is at least newish, having reread that, because I think I've come across a dodge -3, where I wasn't doing it in a face-to-face roll, but I still had the -3 applied because it was an effect in play. I can't remember now. something happened in a tournament, and the thing is, brain would have been fried because it would have been like game 3 of a tournament anyway. And I think I was like, oh, that's odd. I've not had that happen before. And then I think this clarifies that maybe if it's only during face-to-face rolls, that's useful. I mean, it does make sense. It makes sense. Addition to skills important. Skills can only be declared from a position. Oh, I love this one. So I'm really excited because I knew we'd finally reached the point that I really wanted to discuss. Skills can only be declared from a position that the trooper has already been in or moved through during the current order. Therefore, the active trooper cannot declare a skill from a position they have not reached yet. Oh, so good. Another thing I love here, but that first paragraph is worth diving into, and then I'll do the second paragraph. I can see why people did this, and you can still do half of it. No, you can't, but you can. So how people were playing this was that so CC got this clarification, I'm pretty sure, in the previous FAQ, where you could only declare a CC attack if it was valid at the time of declaration. Because what people were doing was they were declaring a CC attack 4 inches away from a target, for example. AROs have always been really clear that you can only declare a valid ARO at that time. So if I declare a CC attack as the active player, and you as the reactive player 4 inches away, you can't declare a CC attack back because CC attack you need to be in silhouette contact to declare it. But because of how the resolution step was working, the active player could then move 4 inches with their second short skill, and then during the resolution step, you met the conditions of a CC attack. So it was valid. And then they changed it so that in the active turn, you could only declare a CC attack if it was valid at the time of declaration. So pretty much bringing it in line with how it's supposed to work. Some people hated that because they love ARO baiting, which is the part of Infinity where no option is a good option in ARO, or it's impossible for you to defend against the attack that's coming in. And while I do agree that that is a very nice part of Infinity, I prefer it to be within the constraints of reasonableness and not grey areas of rules. And I always felt that that CC attack particularly was kind of like you can do it, but you probably shouldn't. It doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of the game. But they left BS attack out of that. So the concept was kind of the same, in that I could be starting somewhere, declare a BS attack. All of my opponents have no valid AROs, so they couldn't declare an ARO. Well, let's say, for example, you have someone who's in zone of control, so they do have a valid ARO in that they've got a dodge because you're in zone of control, but they can't see you yet, so they can't shoot you. I've declared a BS attack, you've declared a dodge, I then move 4 inches out of cover to see you, I can now shoot you against a dodge instead of against like a template weapon or something that's a lot worse. Felt super gamey, and it turns out it probably was, because that's what this FAQ is changing. You cannot declare a BS attack. In fact, you cannot declare any skill from a position that they have not reached yet. So you can't know that you're going to be 4 inches and in silhouette contact and then declare a CC skill, so declare a CC skill here. I love this change. I think it's amazing. Well done, Corvus Belli. It was about time. We kind of knew what you were getting at. This has actually really cleared that up. The other thing I love about this is the developer note underneath it. So it actually says development team note. By adding this important box, our intention is to end all the annoying situations that have been generated with the modification of the order sequence, but keeping the flexibility when declaring skills. So you'll still be able to declare shoot as the first half of the order. However, if you really want to shoot a trooper behind a wall, you must first move to see them and then shoot. The wording aside, because I've just explained that to you, the development team actually putting their intent behind a rule is so good. It's so good. Because what it eliminates is that rules as written, rules as intended argument, because the development team have actually come in here and said, right, just in case we haven't nailed rules as written, this is what we're intending by it. So don't try and read into the grey areas and try and find this extra little bit. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is how the rule should be interpreted, which should be in so many more places, in the rule books, in the FAQs, and that I think would help a lot of these discussions, is if the development team just go, hey look guys, this is the rule, this is what we're intending by it. Please don't be idiots. So thank you so much, Corvus Belli development team, for adding this little box. It may seem like a small addition. It makes the world of difference to those players who want to be playing within the intent of the rule and not necessarily playing towards the as written intent to try and game a situation, which some people enjoy. That's the game for some people. There are games where that's easier to do than Infinity, but I don't think that's the spirit of how 80%, 90% of the player base are trying to play. So thank you for making it easier for most people to just get on and play the game as it's intended. Okay, so that excitement out the way, we're then in remote presence. There's just been an effect added. The special skill remains active even when its owner is in the null state. I figured again that was clear because remote presence, most of its value comes from when it's in a null state, as far as I'm aware. So I think that, yeah, that's kind of good. Sixth Sense. Third effect, this better not be making Sixth Sense more powerful. If the user is the target of a BS attack through a 0 Visage zone, they ignore the -6 and the resulting poor Viz zone. Yeah. I wonder if that's because of the extra thing that got added about MSV. This is just clarifying that that rule doesn't impact Sixth Sense, enabling MSV to shoot through. That's what I'm thinking. Might be wrong on that. Sixth Sense is already insane. It's not insane. I don't like leaning in and saying something's broken or it's no good. I love Sixth Sense, and especially when it's in my favour. We've had discussions in our local group where we kind of feel that it should actually be, Sixth Sense should almost be the 5 level of a fire team. Obviously, units that have it grained into their profile ignore what I'm saying for that because they've got it, and it's great that they have it. But in terms of the fire team composition bonus, we feel like Sixth Sense being at the 4 level and on the mixed fire team is maybe quite powerful. I think my personal opinion, and if you disagree, you're allowed to, and feel free to, and do so in the comments so that I can see other people's perspectives as well, is that it should either be mixed at 5, or it should be mixed at 5, I think. And then I think that BS one that's sitting at 5 should go down to 4, so that a 4... Oh, would that be too powerful for that? Yeah, okay. I don't have a real fix for it that probably wouldn't break something else and make everyone hate the world. But yeah, I think the general comment is just like, wow, Sixth Sense at 4 for mix. That's kind of crazy because it's actually quite difficult to then break that fire team. Yeah, when they've still got Sixth Sense at 4. But that's just my thinking. Again, would love to hear thoughts always. Remember, stealth is not effective against troopers with a Sixth Sense special skill. We know that. That is known. Motorcycle. The 7th bullet point is replaced by... Okay, love this one too. Love this one too. I love this one because I had definitely thought that the motorcycle rule was season 13. And when season 14 came out and made no mention of all of these special things for motorcycles, that it was gone. I kind of was sad because I liked it as an update for motorcycles, and it made them very cool, and it was a great little bit of extra choice. So I was sad that it had gone, but I just kind of took it that it had gone. And this clarifies that no, it's actually the season 13 special rule for motorcycles, in terms of them being able to choose between are they impetuous or are they non-impetuous and gaining cover, is here to stay. I'm actually pretty pumped about that. I like it. Anyone who's got a problem with it must have hated season 13 because bikes were significantly more powerful then. But yeah, I like the fact that this is here to stay. Well done, CB. Kind of wish it had been here to stay for the last couple of months as well. Because when did season 14 dropped? Beginning of October. So we played our tournament in October that wasn't a rule because it had disappeared and it wasn't clear that it just auto carried over. So we've lost a month of motorcycles being able to have this, which isn't too bad, I suppose. Visibility conditions, added one more point to white noise. I haven't seen white noise played in ages, actually. If a trooper with the multispectral visor is the target of a BS attack into, through, or out of white noise zone, the MSV cannot reduce the mods of the result. That's the same as, what did we just see? Eclipse. Okay, cool. That's just bringing that into line with what we saw for Eclipse. Alert. Okay, so many people, and I'm one of those, still get confused between alert and lookout. Like, we know one of them does what we want, but we just don't know the name of it. So alert it's optional, there's no role. The trooper has not been activated by an order. The trooper or an allied trooper within their zone of control has been the target of attack. It just happens that you can just change facing. Pretty sure that's the outcome of that one. It's chopped off the effect from this, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. BS attack, line of fire must be drawn from the point. Again, great, good to see. That's just clarifying what we've already gone through, but it's putting it in the right section of the rulebook. Then look out, the user must have line of fire to an enemy model or marker who declares or performs an order. Again, nice. Yeah. Sorry, I just kind of drifted off into whether it would be easier as to alert and look out became similar effect, but they're not, they're completely different, so there's no way around that. I just need to get better at remembering which one's look out and which one's alert. Rules annex, so this is from the fire team's page. Fire team order effects bullet 2. This is from the rules annex, sorry, that talks about sectorials, so it talks about fire team composition. Fire team order effects bullet 2. If the fire team declares reset or any skill with a movement label, both the fire team leader and the other fire team members perform that skill. That is known. If any other skill is chosen, only the fire team leader declares and performs such a skill, and other fire team members declare and perform an idle, or grants the fire team leader the full set of bonus. That's nice. I've seen someone, I think it's Zozo. It's like Xoey, Xoey, and my pronunciation is terrible at the best of times. I actually put like a handy graphic into one of the Facebook groups that showed this, and it's basically like, if all of your troopers have like stealth, and you're in a fire team, it's a rare situation, but it does happen, then if your fire team leader does something that would like typically like cancel stealth, your other guys won't. So that's key if like your main leader is outside a zone of control of something and you're trying to be stealthy, but one of your other fire team members is inside zone of control. I think how it's been interpreted beforehand is like if the fire team if the fire team leader breaks stealth, everyone would. This is nice that it clarifies that no, those troopers that aren't doing anything and have stealth remain stealthy, regardless of what the fire team leader is doing, without breaking the composition, without stopping the fire team leader from getting all the bonuses and buffs. So that's nice. And again, thank you to, again, apologies, I'm going to be pronouncing your name wrong, but Zoe. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that graphic. That helped me understand that final change as well. So I do appreciate that. Check out that graphic if you haven't seen it in one of the Facebook groups. I think it should be in WGC, IGC, I can't remember, I know it changed its name, I can't remember off the top of my head what it changed its name to, but it should be in the worldwide Infinity chat, that's where it should be, and if not, if someone can find it and with permission share it, that'll probably be helpful for all other players to just see that, because it's quite a nice handy explainer of one of the fringe cases as to where that actually works quite nicely. I do want to make a couple of thanks before I go into my impressions of this FAQ update. Yeah, I want to thank those people that have been jumping into the chats globally and locally to give their hot takes on this and their initial gut reactions. It's really nice to see how people react to these FAQs, where their attention and their focus has gone. Excellent to kind of see that. I definitely want to make special mention to Corvus Belli. I love their attitude of dropping these FAQs. I mean, just like whenever they see fit. There's no like necessarily like major, I mean there probably is a major structure as to when they come out and things like that, but it just feels like they time them right, like just as there's like a big debate happening, and maybe that's because we've got like a relatively small gaming community. They can see what's spiraling out of control, what's creating a big headache, and then just go, do you know what, we can probably just fix that in an FAQ. I also love the fact that they've got digital versions of the rulebooks and everything like that. I do have the printed version of the rulebook for M4. I don't use it as much anymore, but I love the fact that they've got the PDF and they can update that and keep that live all the time. And I really appreciate the time and effort that goes into doing these. I really love the development note that came in this FAQ, and thank you for doing it and taking a bit of a leap of faith and adding that in. It's the first time I've seen it in an FAQ from Corvus Belli, and I love it. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for answering the question that I posed to you, and thank you for doing it so swiftly and succinctly. What was I thinking, asking it? In terms of hot takes, this FAQ for me feels good in most areas. I don't think anything is now super broken. I am grateful that things generally got better with this. Like some unit, I don't think anything was really bad and floundering, and this has now changed them into being apex units at all. But there were a few things that have moved ahead. You know, motorcycles going back to what they were in season 13. Super jump now getting a bit more of a buff. Climbing plus getting a bit more of a clarification on how it can potentially be used to your advantage. I feel like they've pushed the good stuff forward. BS attacks. No more of that ridiculous nonsense about shooting something that you can't see because you will be able to see it at the end of the order. I know that was rules as written, and if you played it like that, you were well within your rights to, because that was the gap that was left open for people to play in. But I do feel like a lot of the things that would have made the game worse have now been closed off a bit more, and I think Kuvosbeli are consistently doing that quite nicely. You know, when they see that something's being gamed in a way that they didn't intend, they close that door fairly swiftly. If you know, there's an opportunity to make an effect or a skill slightly better without it being OP, I think they're doing that quite nicely. So yeah, I think this is generally a very positive FAQ that mostly makes the game better, and I am very grateful that it's happened. You know, I like these FAQs because they remind me of rules that maybe I've been playing wrong, or they make something clearer that was unclear to me beforehand. Super keen on this. If you aren't a fan of anything that's been in here, or if you think I'm overly optimistic about some of these changes because I've missed something fairly significant, I would appreciate you dropping it in the comments, because it's helpful for me to know like what I have missed and whether I've dropped the ball on something. I always recommend, with any of these like hot takes or rules interpretations or any of these videos that I try and do, that you do read the comments, especially if you're a new player and you're using this to try and learn how to play the game slightly better, because there will be some experienced players that jump in the comments and give their insights. Definitely some people of note there. Eric Brackman, he's always really good at some of his key insights and takes. That's always quite hot. Rob Cantrell, if he appears in the comments, listen to what he says. Very, very onto it player, and well worth a listen. There's a few others as well that you'll notice every so often just drop in with some like, no, this is actually what it is, or you've missed this particular application. Listen to the experienced players as well, because while I'm trying to do my best to make a lot of this information accessible to more people, I'm basically just trying to amplify a little bit of the information that's going out there and put it into a different format if people don't like reading stuff. I'm not as an expert as a lot of those players, so defer to their knowledge as much as possible. I do value all the comments and feedback that I get on all my videos, even the constructive criticism, and then sometimes especially the constructive criticism, because I'm trying to make all of this better for you guys watching this. And I do apologise for the makeshift setup that we're in here. I mean, the decor's way better than anything I'd put out there, but yeah, I'm just trying to do this quickly so that those that don't want to feel like they're missing out on the FAQ and want to start playing with as much of these rules as possible can, without missing out heavily. And unfortunately that means that quality, time and preparedness has had to take a bit of a backseat on this. And apologies that this is such a long video and that I'm rambling. I'm sorry if the length of this video has put off a couple of people from watching this, and I don't know why I'm apologising to people that aren't watching this video, because I should be thanking you guys, the ones that have stuck it out this far into the video. Thank you for this mammoth endurance event that you have stuck around for. I appreciate it more than anything. Thank you so much for watching this video. It's always appreciated and a joy to talk Infinity with people that enjoy Infinity as well. And I will be back soon with a video that is, I was going to say less rambly, but I'm not going to make that promise to you. You deserve better than hollow promises. I'm going to be back with a video of a length, featuring content, and it might be good. Maybe. Set your expectations low, please. See you soon. Thanks. Bye.